A hearing over redistricting boiled over into chaos at the Louisiana state capitol Friday as security blocked the president of the state's chapter of the NAACP, the largest civil rights organization in the U.S., from entering the hearing room while protesters packed the halls outside. At one point, the Republican committee chairman cut the microphone of a Democratic colleague mid-exchange, and the crowd erupted.
No justice! No peace!
What happened in Baton Rouge was bigger than one awkward answer. Louisiana Republicans, led by State Senator Jay Morris, were advancing new congressional maps after the Supreme Court struck down the state's current map. But critics say Morris wasn't just redrawing districts. They say he was redrawing power itself, targeting black political representation in a state where black voters make up about a third of the electorate. And when he was forced to explain the consequences of his own bills, the justification started to collapse in real time.
Today's Senate committee hearing was held in a tiny room at the end of this hallway, only able to hold a couple of dozen people. But that didn't stop hundreds from showing up here at the State House today to make sure that they had their voices heard. Heated moments played out in the committee room today. Even before public comment was held, there were 4 bills presented to the committee. 2 options would reduce Louisiana's congressional districts from 2 to 1. Another eliminates both of them. And a 4th keeps 2 black majority districts. Today's hearing drew passionate testimony from Democrats, including Congressman Troy Carter and Cleo Fields, whose districts would ultimately be the most impacted by the redistricting. Senator Jay Morris, introducing 3 of the 4 bills, maintained his stance on the new maps. The Democrats argued that Senate Bill 407 is the only viable option for equality.
I don't know that we should care that much about race. Honestly, I think that's the whole point of the Calais decision is you're not supposed to use race in determining these maps.
Louisiana naturally supports 2 congressional districts where Democratic voters have a meaningful opportunity to elect their preferred candidates.
Now, though no official decision was made today, Democrat members of the committee did make it very clear that they'll be throwing their support behind Senate Bill 407 moving forward.
The exchange that defines this story came when Democratic Senator Gary Carter pressed Morris on the racial consequences of his proposals. Carter wasn't asking about theory. He was asking about outcomes. If your bill reduces black majority congressional seats, if your broader agenda cuts black office holders in New Orleans, and if you can't even say what percentage of your own district is African American, then what exactly are voters supposed to conclude? Morris answered that race shouldn't matter that much. But in Louisiana politics, race has always mattered when power is on the table.
Tense and chaotic today at the state capitol. Our cameras were rolling as voters tried to force their way into a Senate committee hearing. The meeting and 3 additional overflow rooms were at capacity, with people spilling into the hallways there at the state capitol. Now, those voters showed up to get their voices heard about the drawing of the new congressional maps.
Well, this comes after a Supreme Court ruling found the current boundaries are unconstitutional. Lily Cummings was in Baton Rouge today as tensions boiled over.
Emotions ran high as the Senate committee took its first steps towards redrawing Louisiana's congressional maps. 4 maps in total were proposed. One by Senator Price would keep a 4-2 representation in place. Meanwhile, the other 3, authored by Senator Jay Morris, would eliminate Democratic and black representation by either 1 or 2 seats. At one point, it became heated as Senator Gary Carter and Morris exchanged words. Take a listen.
African Americans left.
Senator Carter leaving. Numerous elected officials in the city of New Orleans. And so as the court's review, I asked them to
understand your implications.
I'm not trying to make suggestions about your point.
You're not going to.
We're going to go ahead and take a recess.
I don't want a recess. I already took a recess.
I'm the chairman of this.
You are no different than the senator than I am.
I'm the chairman of this committee.
And you are no different than this. Put my microphone back on.
Keep speaking, Senator.
My microphone. He's suggesting he's not racist. I said we take a look at his work.
To be clear, the committee did not vote on which of the maps they'll select today. That will happen next Wednesday, and then it will be sent to the Senate floor. Reporting from the state capitol, Lily Cummings, WWL, Louisiana.
So Senator Jay Morris sent us a statement about that hearing saying, quote, "I want to assure the public that I did not use any profanity or any derogatory or pejorative term in referring to anyone in the audience at today's Senate and Governmental Affairs Committee at the state capitol.
Hey, Mike. Yeah, Senate Bill 121 was taken up about 10:45 this morning. And as you said, debate is currently underway. So far this morning, let me walk you through what's happened. Senator Jay Morris of Monroe has put forth an amendment to the map. However, he says it only changes it slightly. What the map effectively does, Mike, is it would take 6 congressional districts from a 4-2 to a 5-1 representation, meaning that effectively Representative Cleo Field's seat would potentially be lost, while Congressman Troy Carter's seat would be preserved under Senate Bill 121. Now, as we walked out of chambers into the foyer here, they were hearing from Senator Price, who originally proposed a 4-2 map that he says would still be constitutional under the Calais decision, but unfortunately that is, or rather, they are not proposing that to move forward at this time, and we believe that they will be voting on one of the maps later today to move forward to the House. Of course, we're going to stay on this and keep you updated as it moves forward. Reporting from the Capitol, Lily Cummings, WWL Louisiana.
That is where the politics becomes impossible to ignore. Louisiana currently has 6 congressional seats, 4 held by white Republicans and 2 held by black Democrats. Morris introduced multiple maps. According to the questioning in the hearing, 2 of those maps would reduce black majority congressional representation from 2 seats to 1. Another could reduce it to 0. Morris tried to frame that as constitutional housekeeping. His critics saw something else, a power grab disguised as legal compliance.
Louisiana's majority black voting districts awaits action by the full state Senate. Sabrina Wilson reports from Baton Rouge, where some lawmakers threaten a court fight if it becomes law.
The chamber behind me is where the full Senate is supposed to take up SB 121 on Thursday, but the Legislative Black Caucus says if necessary, it's prepared to go to court to fight for a fair map. After hundreds of people packed the state capitol and remained until Wednesday morning, the Senate Governmental Affairs Committee approved a bill with a new electoral map. SB 121 by GOP Senator Jay Morris of West Monroe eliminates one of Louisiana's 2 black majority districts following the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling that struck down the district currently represented by Democrat Cleo Fields.
I don't think you can base it on race. I think Chairman Morris drew it based on Republican and a more compact map.
Democrats wanted SB 407 by Senator Ed Price to be advanced by the committee. It retained 2 black majority districts. The Louisiana Legislative Black Caucus held a press conference in the Rotunda where Price spoke.
But if you look at my map, it created 2 opportunity districts. Nothing was mentioned about race.
Other black state lawmakers say Morris's bill should not become law.
It splits precincts, it splits communities. It's actually a racial gerrymander because it actively minimizes the voices of black voters.
I was really impressed with the turnout of people there and support, trying to figure out how we get back to where we should be. I thought it was well. I thought the comments were great. The map itself, it leads to not where we need to be.
I requested an interview with Morris, who did not get back to me. But the chairman of the Senate committee, Republican Senator Caleb Klein-Peter, saw the passion the public brought to the Capitol.
It's a very touchy subject. Affects a lot of people, a lot of passion in the room.
Morris's bill heavily alters District 6, currently represented by Democrat Cleo Fields, and District 2, which is represented by Democrat Troy Carter, would run from New Orleans to a sliver of Baton Rouge. Do you expect that map to emerge from the state Senate?
Yes, we'll probably hear it on the floor. Obviously, drawing a constitutional map is our most important thing.
Congressman Carter says while Price's bill didn't make it out of the committee, he said it is my sincere hope that its core principles can still be incorporated through amendments to SB 121.
But if not, they'll see us in court.
I also reached out to some other GOP senators for comment, but they did not respond. Now, what this legislature ultimately does on redistricting is being watched by people around the country. At the state capitol, I'm Sabrina Wilson, Fox 8, Local First. Back to you.
The MAGA party is the last breath of the Confederacy. and I'll be happy to see millennials and Gen Z bury y'all.
Be absolutely honest with you, that is the first time I've ever spoken at a hearing. The redistricting is something that I was really, really disturbed by. Now, don't get me wrong, I already knew what they was going to do. I think just about everybody know that all the people that we talked to in the room that day didn't make a decision. It was up to Trump. He decided he wanted them to redistrict, and they're going to give him exactly what he wanted, whether it's business partners or whatever the case may be. Donald Trump lives like let's put it this way. Hate speech and defamation is his love language.
So as far as I'm concerned, if you here as one of these Trump Republicans, you already showed us who you are. You showed us what you want to do. And I believe the country as a whole is rebuking your party. Y'all are in a death spiral.
I'll say this, because like throughout the speech, I was taking notes and stuff like that and thinking about, oh, I might want to say this, I might want to say that. But 10 hours later, like I was tired. Like I was really more sleeping than anything and just kind of aggravated with the scenario, which might have added to my already like disgust with the MAGA movement when I gave my response. I didn't even like the kind of like smug response that came from the representatives. They understood what they was taking from us. They listened to testimony. We had people who were alive when the Civil Rights Act was signed. We had people that broke down in tears, and they just don't care about that. They don't care about none of us that came into that. They had their mind made up already. And I thought I think it's suitable to talk to them as if they're the type of heartless, soulless people that they present themselves to be. I think oftentimes we sanitize them and we talk to them as if they're regular people. They are not. Like, these are traitors to the country. These are people that want dictatorship. As much as I don't like MAGA, I have about as much criticism for the Democratic Party. We should have been dealing with this in that tone a long time ago. So if the party not going to start it, I'll start it. We do need to build a better world for ourselves, for our daughters, for our sisters, for our spouses, for, our mothers, et cetera, et cetera. We do need to build that better world. And what that start with is us using our power, us using intelligence, us understanding that disengaging from what's hurting us don't make the problem go away. If you can't see the monsters, it don't mean that they disappear. So what I would say above anything else is we have to make sure that we stay in the fight and we don't give up on ourselves, and we continue to vote in the people that are listening to us.
And this is why Carter's line of questioning hit so hard. He wasn't just talking about one map. He was talking about a pattern. During the hearing, Carter linked Morris redistricting bills to a wider set of measures affecting black office holders in New Orleans. He pointed to legislation that eliminated the elected seat of Clerk Calvin Duncan. He pointed to bills reducing appellate and district court judgeships in Orleans Parish. The argument was simple. If every road seems to lead to fewer black officials
State Senator Gary Carter stepped away from a Senate committee that is considering the proposed changes to the congressional district map. After a heated exchange last week, Senator Carter called it a voluntary leave of absence for the sake of decorum. He says his voice in the legislative process will remain strong and unwavering. Friday, the panel heard 4 bills that redraw Louisiana's congressional districts. Senator Carter asked Senator Jay Morris what he'd tell people who thinks his actions are racist, given he passed bills impacting the jobs of elected black officials in New Orleans.
Let's look at the totality of your work. Your work has eliminated the elected seat of an African American in the city of New Orleans. Your work has eliminated the political power of numerous elected officials in the city of New Orleans. And so, as the court's reviewing, I asked them to review your work. I'm not trying to make suggestions about your work, but I will talk about your work.
You're not going to take a recess.
No, I don't want a recess. I already took a recess. You are no different than the senator than I am. And you are no different than the... Put my microphone back on.
Well, State Senator Morris then left the witness table and could be heard telling people seated in the audience, y'all need to shut up. Attorney General Liz Murrell, meanwhile, says State Senator Morris and his staff received death threats after that heated hearing. Merle says there's no place for threats or violence in the political process and accuses critics of intentionally misquoting Senator Morris.
Morris and his allies insist this is all about the law. And that's where the Supreme Court enters the story. In April, the court ruled in Louisiana versus Calais that the state's existing congressional map was an unconstitutional racial gerrymander because Louisiana had relied too heavily on race to create a second majority black district. Republicans seized on that ruling immediately. Governor Jeff Landry suspended only the U.S. House primaries, saying elections could not proceed under an unconstitutional map. Critics say that move threw voters into confusion and handed lawmakers a rushed window to redraw the state in Republicans' favor.
A hearing over redistricting boiled over into chaos at the Louisiana state capitol Friday as security blocked the president of the state's chapter of the NAACP, the largest civil rights organization in the U.S., from entering the hearing room while protesters packed the halls outside. At one point, the Republican committee chairman cut the microphone of a Democratic colleague mid-exchange, and the crowd erupted.
No justice, no peace.
This was the latest flashpoint in a running battle over redistricting across the United States. For more than 8 hours, black members of Congress, pastors, activists, and voters had given testimony, at times emotional, angry, and deeply personal. However, this fight has swung decisively towards Republicans after last week's 6-3 ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court. A ruling that struck down Louisiana's congressional map, finding the state had improperly relied on race when drawing a second majority black district. Critics, Friday's protesters among them, say it guts a key Voting Rights Act protection, opening the door for Republican-led states to eliminate Democratic majority black districts long considered legally protected.
We want our voting rights. We want the right area. We want the right councilman there. We want the map drawn right. That is our right. Okay? We went through this in the 60s. We're not doing this no more.
I feel like the last 50 or 60 years of my life, they didn't happen. We're back to where we were when I was a kid.
On Friday, the committee saw several competing proposals that included maps drawn by Republican State Senator Jay Morris that analysts say would give Republicans 5 or all 6 of Louisiana's seats in the U.S. House. Black voters make up 1/3 of the state's electorate. Republicans already control 4 of the 6 districts. Morris said race and party were not factors in drawing his maps. Democrats and activists disputed that, arguing the result would inevitably dilute black political power. The hearing also came during wider electoral confusion. Governor Jeff Landry suspended Louisiana's May 16th U.S. House primaries just 2 days before early voting was set to begin, even though tens of thousands of ballots had already been mailed. Voters arriving at polling sites found signs on the doors. The congressional race was canceled. The ACLU of Louisiana sued to block Landry's suspension. Sarah Whittington is the group's advocacy director.
So we have a significant black population with significant authority, power, pull across this state, and to suddenly acknowledge and say that they cannot vote for the person of their choice because we will dilute that vote, we will crack their communities of interest, or we will pack them into single districts is extremely problematic.
Landry's office did not respond to a request for comment. Republicans in Tennessee, Alabama, and South Carolina have also launched similar efforts to eliminate majority black districts. Democrats have launched redistricting campaigns of their own. However, Friday saw a serious blow to those efforts when the Virginia State Supreme Court threw out a new map approved by voters there that would likely have flipped 4 Republican seats in the U.S. House. U.S. House lawmaker Cleo Fields, a Louisiana Democrat whose own district was ruled unconstitutional, told the committee Friday that since Reconstruction, Louisiana has elected just 4 African Americans to Congress. He had spoken to Reuters in an interview the day before.
The issue is not whether or not Cleo Fields serves another day in Congress. It's really whether or not a person who looks like me have the opportunity to serve in Congress. And listen, there'll be another court. Another Supreme Court opinion, and it's going to, it will invalidate this one. There'll be another Congress. Congress will pass a law that has teeth and leave nothing for the interpretation for the courts, and we'll get beyond this.
What the new map will look like and when Louisianans will next go to the polls for Congress remains to be decided.
What makes this story powerful is not just that Morris struggled under questioning. It's that the numbers, the bills, the court ruling, and the crowd reaction all point to the same fear, that black political representation in Louisiana is being treated as negotiable. Supporters of the Morris map say they're simply drawing a partisan map that complies with the Supreme Court. Opponents say that is exactly the problem. In modern American politics, race can be buried under the language of partisanship, and the result can look the same on the ground. Fewer districts, fewer offices, fewer voices. A politician can say a map is about partisanship. A court can say race was used too much. A governor can say he is protecting the integrity of elections. But in the end, voters judge politics by what it does, not what it calls itself. And in Louisiana, what people saw was a lawmaker unable to explain the racial impact of his own maps while advancing proposals that critics say would shrink black representation across multiple centers of power. That is why this hearing exploded. Because beneath the technical language of redistricting was a much older fight over who gets counted, who gets heard, and who gets pushed out of the room. The bigger question now is whether Louisiana's final map will survive court challenges, and whether voters will accept a system that seems to move the rules the moment power is at risk. For Jay Morris, the hearing was supposed to be about justification. Instead, it became a live demonstration of just how hard that justification is to sell when the consequences are written all over the map.